Welcome, everyone. Hi, it's Cheryl with Finding the Inner Strength podcast. Welcome to episode 12 of the Finding the Inner Strength podcast. Today's theme, or what I'm going to talk about, is tapping into what I talked about in episode 10 and 9. And it's basically talking about I'm going to finalize where my point of view and experience of yoga has taken me on this amazing journey, like over the last, oh my gosh, it's been almost 20 years. So, on episode 10, I spoke about the differences between hatha, classical, and yin, or what I thought were the differences on them. Talked a little bit on the history of yoga. I didn't dive deep into it. If this is something that you really want to explore, you can always reach out to me and I can give you links or places you can find the information or even books. So, what I wanted to start with today um, is with the awesome vinyasas, flows, power yoga, and the yang of the yin, basically, as we're talking about. It's like the body is getting warm, we're working the muscles, we're strengthening the body. So I kind of put them all in a little bubble. But flow, we can probably take out a little bit and kind of play around with what the word flow could be when you're going to classes. Um, Vinyasa, for me, over the years, was one of my favorite practices. And it's almost like this beautiful dance and choreographed dance of yoga. It's kind of like how I like to think about it. I'm not a dancer, I'm not a gymnast, but I'm assuming quite a few of you have been to these classes, and they're just absolutely beautiful. And the vinyasa part, they created it into this where we're flowing from downward dog to a plank to an upward dog or cobra back to a downward dog. Sometimes you could be standing at the front of your mat and then hands come down to the mat in a forward fold and you just jump back to that plank, lower yourself down, chaturanga, into the upward dog or cobra, and it could be sphinx too, and then into a downward dog. It's really pretty to watch, and much respect for this practice because it builds strength, it builds core muscle, it does help with mobility and flexibility, and then with power and flow, it all kind of to me incorporates all together. Sometimes power doesn't have a flow like a vinyasa in it. It's more just strengthening poses one to the other, and it's quite gratifying. I remember all through the years when I'd be practicing this style and learning and instructing, being certified to instruct it, um, how um, much people really encompass the practice. Uh, and it's funny though, because over the years for me, um, it was probably within just the last, okay, it's 2025. So just after COVID, maybe 2022, and things started going a little awry for my body. And also, before 2022, I had a shoulder injury. I had a partial tear in my supraspinatus of the shoulder muscle, and it really affected my practice. It affected my instruction because I couldn't demonstrate. Well, actually, I still demonstrate it because I was pushing through the pain, because why wouldn't you, right? But eventually, the mobility of my shoulder was just too intense. So um, it what I started discovering from around then is noticing when you go to a class and when you especially drop in classes where these flows are continuously instructed or guided. And a lot of us as instructors will say, okay, vinyasa, or if you choose not to, you can go to table or downward dog. And eventually I became way more observant of my students because I was becoming more aware of things happening to my body and not understanding why my body was becoming sore, not including my shoulder, because my shoulder, I knew I had to get looked at. There was something not right with my shoulder. But things were starting to go with my back and my neck, and my hips felt kind of off. But I was observing because of what I was feeling, I became more in tune, I'd say within the last 3 to 4 years, on how students were moving through these poses, these flows in a drop in class. How was the instructor giving them the feedback or telling them how to go into it? And already at this point, I was completely, um, I don't want to say against, but I am, I guess, against teachers manipulating or aligning, helping to align a student's body. So, and I have talked about that in past episodes on why I feel like that. So, the more I watched my students, and even with sun salutations, a Surya Namaskar, you're flowing, you are moving, you're doing your chaturangas, you are going into upward dog and cobras, you're going back to downward dogs. There's a lot of shoulder stuff going there, there's a lot of lower back strengthening that you need to have, an abdominal core strength. And I was just watching how people were moving through this without, to me, proper guidance. And I could see injuries like red flags going up multiple times, even in classes that I was taking, realizing how things were being instructed. It could be harmful without people realizing it. And even without the instructor realizing it because of how they've been trained and how they got their certification. So it was about not last summer or last spring, but the spring before. So 2023, my body it was hurting. Like I was teaching probably about 4 or 5 classes a week, and half of those were vinyasa. Plus, I have my own practice, and I couldn't go into forward folds. I couldn't understand what was going on. So then my capability of leading and instructing students became more of a verbal thing. I would show things slowly, but what I do, and I know I have clients and students that know I do this. If we would say, I would start a class off, we would do our breath work and slowly start moving with beautiful, gentle flow on the floor, and then making our way to standing to get ready for Surya Namaskar, sun salutations. The moment I was instructing a sun salutation, if I would demonstrate the first 2 rounds with them, and then I would verbally walk, and while I was walking around the room watching them. And so I would actually stop the class, and I still do when I'm in a in-person class, and I will make a mini workshop for people to learn how their body moves. Because I wasn't instructed when I was younger, through the years of my practice, on how to move safely through through the vinyasa flow. So through plank, chaturanga, upward dog / cobra into a downward dog. I was never really given, when I thought about it as on an instructor, educator side, there was never, oh, maybe watch this. Where's your hips? What's this? What's the position? Why are you doing this? Why could this be detrimental to your lower back? What could happen to your shoulders here? There were so many layers that I, over the years, and it's because of experience, noticing what was missing in a class. So I actually will stop my class, or it's not that I stop the class. I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to have a little mini series here on learning how your body moves through this flow. And if you're going to do this variation, what are you feeling? Do you have the strength to move through this? When you're doing this modification or variation, why would you pick this one over this one? And I do this with usually when I'm noticing something within an asana or a flow that's missing, because everyone's trying to stay together. Everyone's trying to, and I shouldn't say everyone, but it's human nature to stay in time with everybody, to be competitive without sometimes noticing we're being competitive. And to me, safety was number one, and enjoyment. And so it got to a point for me physically, I could not teach vinyasa flow classes anymore, or power flows. And because there's multiple bends and forward bends, backward bends, chaturangas, like you name it, it's a continuous flow. And it's just like when you're in a class like that, you're trying to stay in the rhythm with the instructor. And to no fault of the instructor or the teacher, it's just kind of how it goes with a drop-in class. But like I said, with my drop-in classes, if I see something is being done that could possibly cause an injury in the class or down the road, excuse me, I will revamp my class to educate my students. And that's what I guess I'm very passionate about that, because I want people to ask the questions and understand why they're doing, not just going in and just assuming, as I've said in other episodes. So because of the journey I went on in the last 3 to 4 years with my body physically, um, I started slowing my practices down, and even with some other my other trainings, um, just learning the mechanics of our bodies, and how I could be standing by someone who has the same body type as me, but we don't. There's things underneath the skin and the muscles, and further down, all the way down to the skeleton, that are not the same. So I was very inquisitive on being able to share that with my students, because of what I was going through physically. And because physically I was in pain, I mentally had a really hard time, because mid 40s, oh, before that was early 40s, and I couldn't understand why my body was shutting down on me. And if I had known then what I know now, as we all say when we get older, I probably, or I would hope that I would listen to the wisdom of someone teaching me how to move my body correctly. So what I want to talk about the flow section is, you'll see sometimes gentle flows, gentle movement. But a gentle flow to me is a slower practice, but you are still flowing like you would in vinyasa and power, pose to pose. There's no resting in between. Okay. But with my gentle classes, I will give the time if people need a break, need a drink. I give them permission, which I wish I didn't have to, but I always let my students know, if you need to take a break, take a break. You can always join us when you're ready to keep going. But with the gentle ones, it's not yin. You're not holding poses between 2 to 5 minutes. It's not classical hatha, same thing. You're not holding poses for longer periods and then having rest in between. You still have that beautiful choreography, in the flow. You have time to connect to your breath, but you also might have the ability to notice more with what's going on with your body. So back in 2022, my husband and I had moved from Yellowknife, Northwest Territories to Cochrane, Alberta. And I was noticing things with my body that I was in pain. I had migraines even before we moved down to Cochrane. And my osteopath and massage therapist in Yellowknife helped me find a fantastic osteopath in Cochrane. And I remember going to Michelle my first time, and she had asked me if I heard of Hannah Somatics. And I was like, no, I've never heard of it. And she kind of gave me a quick Coles notes on what it was. And she did a few movements with me. I remember that first or second session. And something so gentle. I wasn't going to stretch. It was a gentle, slow, purposeful movement. And within not even 2 to 3 minutes, my range of motion lengthened with this simple, methodical movement. And it's almost like I was meant to meet Michelle. And she planted a seed. I don't know if she was aware that she did that at the time. And I slowly started researching somatics and learning that there was different approaches to somatics, somatic yoga, sometimes you'll see somatic trauma. But I did a lot of research and was very particular if I was going to take the road of educating myself on this, on which route I took. And I ended up working with a program called Gentle Somatic Yoga, GSY, created by James Knight. And he has over 2 decades of working with Hannah Somatics, training right with the creator's wife in somatics. I'm not going to dive too deep into it today because it can be a little bit, a lot of information actually is within it. But what's great about somatics, Hannah Somatics, is, I guess I should just say first what somatic is. And there's different wording and how would you name it? Definitions of wording of somatics. But it's basically like you are being your own observer from the inside of how your body works to the outside, and even the environment and how it affects your body. But what's really cool about it is like there's backing and science behind it and how they created it, and it works within, like, it's neuroscience, neuroplasticity, and it's almost like somatics can be likened to flipping our own internal feedback circuits, which is another way of describing neuroplasticity. And what happens is over time, we create these ways of moving our body from either what our job is. Maybe there's an injury, and maybe there's a something else mentally traumatic that's happened, that basically repatterns those neurons and holds constant stress and tension within the body, which means our body doesn't know how to let go of stress and tension or understand the reading of it. So what's nice about GSY is Gentle Somatic Yoga is James Knight created somatic movement flows, and it's very, very slow and methodical, and you're not going into a stretch and holding, because when you go into that point of holding too long, within this particular practice, it doesn't give time for the muscles to understand how to let go of tension and stress. It's almost like go into that fight or flight mode and just want to hold on tight, tight, tight. With the gentle somatic yoga, you're gently moving, flowing through a movement that it's like a it's like pendiculation, a yawn. So when you think of when you wake up in the morning and you stretch your muscles and then just let go and you just feel that release, it's kind of what we're working with within these flows. And so when I discovered this and really I researched it to what I was looking for, this is where I landed. And it was just all these light bulbs going on to how we can learn how to move in a safe, mindful way that, to my knowledge and learning and teaching for now, I've been teaching 10 years almost. And if I could have shared that at the beginning of my teachings and understood all this or had that information, um, I think it not would have also helped my students, but also myself on what I was doing to my body. So it's been quite a road for me and a journey. And most of you who have been to my classes know I'm extremely excited. I always get so excited when I'm educating my students. And it's still, I'm quite fun. I have to say, I am fun in a class. I'm not completely serious. I like to crack little jokes, have fun. My students get a kick out of me because I do like little, it's almost like I'm 6 years old sometimes bouncing around the classroom or the studio. But what I'm noticing is the more I educate people on this and they can see what they can do for themselves in connecting with their physical and mental body and connecting the brain with muscle movement is absolutely phenomenal. There is so much information on it. It's I'm within what gentle somatic yoga is, what Hatha somatics is, and it's a way of wonder and wander. So it's really cool. Like, it's something I learned on my courses is you wonder where something, what you're feeling, and you wander through the body to find the sensation and maybe why it's happening. And what happens is I get this a lot because of my lower back. Um, and depending on if I've been sitting too much or haven't physically connected with my body on that level in a while, I get these. It's hilarious, actually. It's almost like you got these static movements, and your muscles don't want to cooperate with your brain. It's it's actually quite entertaining. Sometimes I just laugh because I'm like, oh, there it is, and I kind of go and I explore it, and then I try to figure, okay, why am I at this point now? I'm going to just play with it, and eventually it does release, but then it gives me time to explore mentally also. Maybe, okay, what have I done the last few days, maybe weeks, for this to come back, for what's happening? And I just find it absolutely, absolutely phenomenal. And which brings me to an announcement of I am in the middle of creating a program for my clients. And I'm really looking forward to sharing it. This is just the first announcement of it. And it'll be a combination of somatics and stretching, yoga. So what I want you to take from this, from learning about classical hatha, then hatha, yin, vinyasa, um, and I didn't even touch on nidra or restorative yet, is there's so many forms of yoga that just because it's called yoga doesn't always mean it's beneficial for you as an individual. Or the form of yoga could be beneficial, but when you're practicing it, what is your body trying to tell you, and where or how far you should or shouldn't push your body? And so, yes, this program that I am creating will, to me, help you and my clients learn how to understand their body and how to move with it in a fun, safe way. So that's what I wanted to just touch on today. It's pretty exciting to have all this information and be able to create something for anyone that's already practicing yoga to a beginner, and I want to have this program where you can take it and learn about yourself. I just touched briefly on the somatics, and I just touched briefly on the vinyasa and power and flow. But I want you to start being inquisitive and understanding what works best for you. And because it will help you in the long run, even the short term, but the long term of understanding where you are in a moment, or if you start to feel something like a pain and why you're feeling that pain, because that pain is usually coming from usually by sensory motor amnesia. And if you can start working with it and being kind and compassionate, you'll have a lot of benefit on healing. So that's all I have today. I just wanted to touch on that a little bit and give that little announcement. And I will be back in Canada at the end of April into May, and there's some other things coming up also with that. And there will probably be retreats. I have an amazing colleague that we are in the middle of starting to create retreats, and I'm going to have workshops when I get back there, and at a few locations within the Cochrane, Alberta area. And I'm really looking forward to also, I should say, I'm in the process of creating Patreon account for my online business, because I would love to share this course that I'm creating, this program, and have this beautiful community where you can learn and you can have access to more information. And yeah, that's where I'm at today. I'm feeling pretty productive. Yesterday I did a yin video on YouTube, and it was about strength. And I think it's really important that we connect with our own internal strength and what can make us strong and resilient and grounded, especially around this time. It is February 2025, so a lot of you know what I mean by that. I'm going to close off for now. I want to say have a fantastic day, fantastic week, fantastic month, and you will hear from me again next time. Thank you. Bye.